Hello, and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. Recently, Springfield Sports Club won a major court battle against the New Brunswick Chief Firearms Officer. So what had happened is that the Chief Firearms Officer had imposed a number of conditions on Springfield's range approval. Springfield disagreed with a bunch of these conditions and brought them into court and challenged them. The court found that many of these conditions were unreasonable or unwarranted, as well as, and this is a really big aspect, that the Chief Firearms Officer had exceeded their authority in imposing many of these conditions. In fact, that many of these conditions appeared to be intending to kind of rearrange the statutory framework that's provided in the Firearms Act and the regulations to, in some cases, give the Chief Firearms Officer power over decisions that properly should be decisions made by Springfield, as well as in some other cases to take responsibilities from the users of the range and to try to put those responsibilities on Springfield so that they'd be required to police their users in a way that the firearms regulations didn't really contemplate them having to do so. So the court said, nope, these conditions are out. And this is a really big deal because this doesn't just potentially affect Springfield, it potentially affects any range, which means that it also potentially affects any user of a range. So all sorts of Canadian gun owners have skin in the game on this one, myself included. I'm not in New Brunswick. I'm not involved in this court battle. I'm not in this litigation. However, I shoot at a range here. There's lots of ranges that looked at this decision and said, hey, wait a minute. What about us? This might affect us. So this is a really important case. I previously covered it. I've got a video out on this one. Let's see some of what I had to say back then. So the next question I expect people to have is, Runkle, you spent almost 2 hours on this case. Why is this case so important? And frankly, I think this one is a really big deal. This is one gun club bringing a challenge. However, the principles articulated here can be applied to other clubs. We've seen that in New Brunswick, they've basically said that this is something they're trying to impose on all the ranges there. Well, I can guarantee there are some other ranges who maybe should be looking at this going, we could do that, right? I mean, why not? We've heard that these are rules that are brought in and being borrowed from Nova Scotia. I'm sure there's some people in Nova Scotia looking at this right now going, how about we get some of that? They've been applying some of this in other provinces as well. And the main thing is that this is one of the, it's a decision that actually kind of curtails the power of the Chief Firearms Officer to what they're actually given in the law, as opposed to the things that they would like to have. I have concerns that it seems like sometimes the courts are unwilling to hold the police to the four corners of the authority that they're given. But of course, that is what should happen. Nobody should be permitted to essentially write their own favorable laws. That's just not how the law works. The law should, it gives power to the police, but it also constrains them. The only real procedural fairness that we have is found in these laws. And if the courts aren't willing to make decisions like this one, where they hold them to account and hold them to standards, then we don't really have any protections. Now, I think that this decision, because it's so important, might be subject to an appeal. I could very much see that they will not like this decision. They'll want to challenge it because they don't want to open these doors. So that may happen. That requires us to consider, how do we think this case is going to do on appeal? And I think this case is going to do pretty well. It looks at the underlying statutes, it looks at the reasons for it, and I think it quite well articulates the issues, it articulates the reasons. I think this is a good, solid case. One of the things I dislike most is when there's a case that is really good for me in terms of the result, but the reasoning is shaky, and you just go, oh no, because that one's going to go to appeal and they're going to flip it. And they're probably going to flip it and not say, well, we don't like the reasoning, but we like the result. They're probably going to flip it and get you to the opposite result. So I don't like cases like that, but this I don't think is one of them. I think this one is really persuasive in its reasoning. You can never predict appeals courts. Sometimes they do things in directions you don't know. But I think this one has a very good chance of standing up to appeal. Now, as I said, might get appealed. And if it does, there will probably be a need for fundraising to fight an appeal. So if that happens, you will hear me say, hey guys, let's pony up some cash to help out on this one. And when I say let's, the old joke is when people online say, we should do something, we means you guys. Now, I'd be first in line to put some dollars in on this one, because this is a big deal, and I really want to see this decision hold up. All right, so you can see this is not a small issue. So I personally have donated. There's a GoFundMe here. They're trying to raise funds so that they've got the resources to properly fight this battle. I went and saw the top donation, and I said, I will nudge that. And someone out there, I hope, will see mine and knock me off the top spot. But if you can't, whatever you can, chip in is going to help, because this is not so much a sprint necessarily. This is a long distance run. So I also, there's going to be a link not just to the GoFundMe below, but also to my Patreon. If you're thinking, hey, I want to support one of these things, support their GoFundMe. If you got to choose them on this one, because this is really important. So yeah, this is a major issue, and it's really important that they have the resources to fight this, because if the chief firearms officer loses, you might expect to see a whole lot more conditions start appearing at your local range, which might limit you from doing things that you might want to do. It might restrict your hours. It might restrict what kinds of shooting sports you can do. All sorts of possible things. So help out if you can. Helping Springfield means helping yourself here. Anyway, thank you for watching. As I said, the GoFundMe is going to be linked below. Here's what it looks like so you can see it. Go and help out with whatever you can. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you found this to be interesting or educational. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters at the $50 level: Sir Daniel Wicks of Alberta, Jason Elliott, Canada's National Firearms Association, Kyle Martin, Jean-Guy Toussaint, Ivo Nedev, the CCFR, and the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. At the $30 level, Sights and Arms Limited and Marc-Olivier Damour. And at the $20 level, Matt Ward, Mark Whittington, Dale Nesbitt, Cameron Johnson, Andrew Elsich, and Adam Meester. I also want to thank everyone at the $10 level who will be in the crawl immediately following. Thank you for watching. I hope this has armed you with knowledge, and see if we can help out Springfield, because this is one of those cases that has potential for huge impact, and that's why the New Brunswick Chief Firearms Officer wants to fight it. They don't want to let this happen, so fingers crossed that that they can pull this off. Anyway, thank you. See you next time.